for another story, have you? Well, why don't you stay a while and listen? Have you ever wondered how the gods stay so young and healthy and strong and, not to mention, immortal? It's because of apples. Specifically, the golden apples of Idunn. Now, Idunn, she was one of the Norse gods, and she grew these luscious golden apples which granted strength and youth and immortality. And she grew them, and when they were ripe, she harvested them, put them in her golden box, and once a week she handed out the apples to the gods, one per god. And then they ate them and they regained their youth and strength and immortality. Now, once upon a time, Odin and Höner and Loki were out walking, and they had walked very, very far, and when the night started to settle in, they were starting to get hungry. So they looked around, and eventually they saw some cows and oxen. So they quickly grabbed one of the oxen, slaughtered it, and started to roast it on a spit. After a while, Loki checked the meat. He sliced open the flesh and looked beneath, and the meat, it was still raw. It was a little weird, but they put it back on the spit and continued to turn it and roast it. After another while, they sliced open the flesh again, took a look, and turns out the meat was still raw. They scratched their heads when they heard from the top of the tree a screeching laughter. That meat will never be done as long as I don't want it. Those cows are mine. They looked up and they saw this giant eagle sitting in the top of the tree. Now this was a giant called Thjazi, who had changed his shape to a giant eagle. Loki, thinking quick on his feet, said, "Oh, mighty Thjazi, we beg your forgiveness. We are so sorry. We did not know that this was your cows. But perhaps you would be willing to share some of this bounty with us. Come and join our feast." Now Thjazi, he's a devious one, got a glint in his eye, and he said, "Very well." And the meat got done instantly. Such fragrant, mouth-watering smell filled the nearby area. Thjazi hopped down, and then he swallowed the oxen whole. Skin, hide, hair, flesh, meat, and bone in one single gulp. Loki, thinking quick on his feet, grabbed a log and started to swing it after Thjazi. Thjazi hopped back, and then he grabbed a hold of Loki and started to fly off with him. He bashed him into trees, and then he started to fly up a mountainside, bashing him into rocks on the mountainside. Loki screamed and he screamed, "Please, no, don't hurt me. It hurts. I'll do anything you want." "Anything?" said Thjazi. Yes, anything, please, stop it." "I want you to take Idunn and her golden apples and bring her to the far side of the forest so I can grab her." Loki had no choice, so he agreed, and Thjazi flew him back and dumped him at the feet of Odin and Höner. Having no food, and they were hungry, so they decided to go back to Asgard and Valhalla. They got back. Loki waited a week to get his apple. So he got his apple, took a bite, ate it up, so he regained his youth and strength. And then he went to Idunn, and he said, "Well, Idunn, do you know that I've actually discovered something amazing?" "Oh, what is that?" Idunn said, instantly curious. "Oh yes, I've discovered apples far more golden and far more luscious than yours. They even make me younger and even more stronger than yours. What? Said Idunn. This is preposterous. No apples are better than mine. I don't believe you. Well, if you don't believe me, said Loki, perhaps you could come and check for yourself. Bring some of your apples so we can compare. I will, said Idunn. So she grabbed her box with the apples, and then they started to walk. They walked clean through the forest, and when they got outside on the other end, on the far side of the forest, they heard this screech coming from above. And Thjazi swooped down, grabbed a hold of Idunn and her box, and flew away with them. Loki snuck back into Valhalla, or Asgard. I didn't want anybody to know what he had done. But after a week or so, the gods started to discover some unfamiliar things. When they bent their knees, there was this popping sound. And Thor was horrified to discover that when he sat down, he made the sound. And when he got up, it was like, ugh. He had never done that before. He started to have a sore back as well. Frigg, Odin's wife, started to discover these lines on her face. Freya discovered gray hair on her luscious head of hair. It didn't take long for the gods to put two and two together, so they confronted Loki. Thor especially was really angry. The gods marched over there, their knees popping in unison. Thor grabbed a hold of Loki and he said, "If you do not get Idunn back, I will crush your head like an overripe berry." Loki, of course, was terrified, and he promised he would do whatever he could to set this right. So he went over to Freya's, and he borrowed Freya's falcon suit. Now this suit enables you to change your shape to that into a falcon, so you could fly really, really fast. He put the suit on, he changed into a falcon, and he flew towards Trimheim. That's where Thjazi lived. And he got there, and he circled his lair, but he couldn't see any sign of Thjazi. He looked inside, took a peek, and all he saw was Idunn and her box of apples. Hope started to beat in Loki's chest. So he quickly went inside. He changed Idunn and the box into a couple of hazelnuts, scooped them up in his talons, and he started, as quick as he could, to fly back to Asgard and the gods. As soon as he exited the lair, Thjazi came. He saw Loki, and he started to chase him. Now, usually falcons are faster than eagles, but eagles have more stamina and endurance. So mile after mile, second after second, Thjazi was gaining upon him, inching closer and closer to Loki. Meanwhile, back in Asgard, Heimdall had kept a lookout, and with his amazing eyes, which enables him to see single blades of grass from miles and miles away, he could see Loki approaching fast, with Thjazi gaining upon him. He got the gods together, and he made them build this big bonfire on top of the wall surrounding Valhalla. They didn't light it yet, and they built it bigger and bigger and bigger. And as soon as Loki cleared over the wall and the big bonfire, Thor used his hammer and made lightning strike down into the big pile of wood, blazing it up immediately, roasting Thjazi alive. He was dead. They got Idunn back, all the gods got their apples, and they gained their youth and strength back. Now you would think that the story was over there, but then again you would be mistaken, because you see, Thjazi had a daughter by the name of Skadi. And she was, of course, furious that they had killed her father. So she showed up at Valhalla and demanded of Odin reparations. In return for killing her father, she demanded that she would marry one of the gods of her choice. Odin agreed. That seemed a fair price. But he had a trick up his sleeve. She would get to choose among the gods, but all that she would see of the gods were their feet. So they put up this big divider in Valhalla. All the gods stood behind it, took off their shoes and socks and pants, and then Skadi would get to choose from what she saw. Now she went up and down the line looking at the feet. Some have 2 stubby toes. Some had these long, weird-looking toes. Some have never even cut their nails. Some had nails as hard as stone. Some had never washed them. Some had dry and hard, dead skin crackled all around them. But eventually, she saw the perfect pair of feet. Toes not too long, not too stubby, neatly cut nails, no dead, dry, crackled skin anywhere. They were very clean. In fact, they looked freshly scrubbed. Skadi thought, this has to be the feet of Balder, the most beautiful of gods. I have found my choice. I have found my husband, she said, and pointed to the feet. They took the divider away, and it turns out that it wasn't Balder. In fact, it was Njord, the god of the sea and sailors. But that makes sense, actually. Now, Njord, he walks into the ocean bare feet each and every day, almost constantly, walking among the sands, scrubbing his feet clean for dead flesh and skin and getting them clean and nice. Now, as far as I know, Skadi and Njord married, and they actually had a pretty happy marriage. And if you're looking for a moral to this story, I don't think you'll find one. Because, well, unless you consider patricide a good way of gaining a wife, but I wouldn't recommend it. Anyway, thanks for listening.